Hello and welcome to Metro Home Theater Tech Tips. I'm Brent.
I'm Adam.
Welcome aboard. So Adam, what is today in our HDMI deconstruction series?
We are on episode 3 of our HDMI deconstruction. We're actually on episode 4.
I was counting.
Yeah. We're on episode 3 though of the 6-part
series.
series.
Right, because we had 2 of he did.
Exactly. So, what today's episode is about is we're going to be talking about the CEC, ARC, EARC, and Ethernet.
So should we just turn around and go home now with our heads in shame?
Pretty much.
Okay.
So now we joked last week about the fact that this episode was just basically going to be turn off CEC. We'll see y'all next time.
Well, isn't that pretty much, yeah.
That's pretty much what this episode's going to be about. No, but anyways, yes, everyone, thank you for joining us today. What we're going to be talking about is CEC on
and
the
actually,
HDMI
it's going to be
channel.
very important as we move into 2.1.
It is, very much so. So, of course, we'll be talking about the HDMI channels, the deconstruction. We'll be continuing with that discussion today. We are also going to talk about a tech support call that we had this week that was kind of an interesting one. And on top of that, we have a little piece of news from the CE world. So we'll be talking about that as well. So,
Ooh, now you got me excited.
well, you'll have to wait till the end. I know. I'm doing that trick, right? I'm getting you to stick around
the
to
networks.
the
Yeah, stick around. News at 11.
Exactly.
15.
So, listen, everybody, as always, thank you for checking in with us today. If you have any questions or comments or stories or anything you want to tell us about what we're talking about today, put it down in the chat. Even if it has nothing to do with what we're talking about. Like I said, today we're talking about HDMI. If you have a question or a comment about distributed audio, or you have a question or comment about TV mounts, or you have, I don't even want to tell us your life story, go for it. We just want to hear from you.
Maybe not so much the last one.
Well,
anything we've talked about or you want us to talk about?
yeah.
Because we're always open to good ideas.
Put it down in the chat. If you are catching this after the fact, you can, of course, leave it down in the comment section. We do monitor the comment section as well to ensure that we keep all of that up to date with that. So,
Wait. Don't forget, subscribe early.
Yep.
Don't vote twice.
Yep.
Tell your friends to subscribe.
Yep.
Like us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter.
Like this video, too. That'd be great.
Yes, please.
And hit that bell notification to let you know when we go live.
Leo, give us a call after the show.
Yeah, Leo, give us a call. By the way, nice to see you, Leo. Okay, so, Brent, with that, we have a sponsor for the day.
And what is the sponsor?
The sponsor is the letter A. Again.
Okay. Why is it A again?
Not because of the AIO2, even though the AIO2 is really great and all. However, it doesn't do a whole lot for this.
Okay.
Okay, but what our sponsor for today is the letter A for ARC, because we have this guy here. This is the CS- where did it go? HDM4X1 ASW4. This is a 4x1 HDMI switch with audio breakout and ARC capability in it. So with that there, you're not even on that one, are you?
No, I've lost my connection.
You did lose your connection. So with that, this piece here is great because it does give you 4 HDMI inputs, 1 HDMI out. It also gives you 2 audio outputs. It gives you the coax, the digital coax, and the 3.5.
Well, it actually gives you 3 audio outputs.
3 audio, yeah,
because
you're
HDMI,
correct. Yep.
digital coax, and analog stereo.
And 4 because Toslink. It actually does have a Toslink out on it as well. So I missed that one myself. But great piece. Check it out.
Wait. But that's not all it has. ARC.
That's correct. Yeah, so it does take in if you have a smart TV and you need to get audio back to a source of some kind, and
particularly
you also
an older AVR.
Exactly, and you also have other source devices as well. This is great because you can throw it in there, hook it up to your smart TV, have all the sources go to that, and then go out to it, maybe like an older AVR, like you said.
To digital input only.
I pointed old AVR.
Should I go get my cane?
Check out this piece. Contact your reps, contact your distributors for pricing and availability. It is available now, so definitely check it out. It's a great piece, and it's 18 gigs.
And it's 18 gigs, and the hex codes are online.
Yes, they are.
So they're readily available for your control system.
Yes, they are. Yep, so great piece. Definitely check it out. Now, Brent.
Yes, sir.
Let's jump in.
Okay. I'm old, so can I just hobble?
What? Yeah, sure. Do you want me to push you in at least? I mean, I
you
can just
do
kinda,
anyway. Yeah, you're right over the cliff.
So, anyways, with CEC, and again, everybody, thank you for checking in. If you have questions about what we're talking about today, or if you have your own stories about how CEE messed up. CEC. What did I say?
CEE. It's CEC.
Going too quick. Give us your stories about how CEC screwed up one of your jobs. I would love to hear it. Maybe we can, send them a little something for the story.
A no prize?
Yeah, sure, of some kind. But tell us, what do you do? What's the first thing you do when you set up a TV?
Turn off CEC.
Turn off CEC.
And why do we turn off CEC is the first thing we do?
Well, the reason that what I use as an explanation to the consumer that I'm setting up a TV for is because I'm most likely going to be installing some kind of automation or control system, and the control or automation system may not know what that TV is doing because CEC, I'm going to get a command from something else that says turn on or off, and we're all going to be out of whack.
Then, before we go there, what is the purpose of CEC and what is its intent?
Okay, so CEC, this is interesting. I'm answering questions this time around,
Yes,
right?
you are.
Okay.
I like this.
CEC is actually kind of interesting as a concept, and again, this is something that we've talked about before where conceptually these things are really great. As a concept, CEC was cool because it was going to take the ability to have a single remote, say the TV remote, for, to be able to control other devices across...
Your cable box, your DVD player, your satellite receiver. And what would you point that remote at?
The one device, the TV.
Typically, yes.
Now, of course, you can have some devices like some Blu-ray players can control the TV from their side, so you would, of course, point it at the Blu-ray player. Whatever the master device is, that's what you point at. And so then, of course, you point at that device, and it sends the command to the rest of the devices to do whatever it is. So the one idea would be like...
Why has CEC failed?
Because everyone puts their own little spin on it.
Exactly. Much like buying a Windows-based PC.
Yep.
Everybody wants to throw their bloatware on it, and it's not as fully compatible as you'd think it'd be. Now, a number of companies through the years have tried to use CEC as their backbone. 6 or 8 years ago, there's a company called Hydra that made matrices.
Right.
And they actually used CEC, built it into their system, and encouraged you to use it. Unfortunately, it was not as reliable as they hoped, and for that and other reasons, sadly, Hydra is no longer with us. Crestron and Control 4 both attempt to use CEC with varying levels of results.
Not that great. It wound up being that it's just so much easier just to go ahead and either stick an IR bug onto something or
IP control or serial or
RS-232. Yeah, definitely.
Because it's independent of that stream.
Yeah.
And the more devices you throw in a system, splitters, matrices, AVRs tend to muddy up the waters.
I'm actually going to put a little questionnaire out for everybody for the end of the episode. We'll come back to this if anybody posts in there. What do you use? Do you use CEC? Have you used it? We're kind of dumping on it quite a bit right now because we use it in the automation world. We don't like it because we don't like things talking to other things when they shouldn't be. But do you use it out in the field? Do you set up systems with a single remote, say a Samsung remote with a Samsung soundbar and a Samsung Blu-ray player? Or do you have other devices set up with it as well and it works for you? Let us know. Tell us how you configure it and how you do it different.
Let's bring up something you talked to me this morning about, which is the Roku soundbar and Roku.
Yeah.
Now, when you do this, what were your results?
So it was actually really cool. So I was over at a client and I set up a Roku for them, and I didn't need the remote except for the initial setup process, and because I was going to use the Control 4 driver, which is a great driver. However, when I went to go get everything set up, after I logged into the account, which if anybody's done the Roku setup account, you understand it's that little code that you put into it. But what was really cool about it is once you got all past that, the first thing it says is, please wait, we're setting up your remote. And I thought that was really interesting because I was expecting to have to at least put in some kind of information for it. And at that point, it then said, okay, there should be some sound playing, hit the mute button on the Roku remote. Did it work? And lo and behold, it did. It was like it didn't even try. It was just done. And it was a really nice feature for that because in many situations, people want to have just a single remote and they'll use the Roku as their primary watching device.
And you and I have both done jobs together where the Amazon remote, for a while until the control system got up and going, was the basic remote.
Right.
Now, and the first time the same thing happened to me on Amazon, I assumed, because it was on Sony TVs on a Fire Stick, that the Amazon was controlling through CEC, and I said, hey, this is great.
Right.
But it isn't.
No, it's not.
It's on IR.
Correct.
All it's actually doing is tracking the EDID, which was the last 2 episodes.
Yes.
On firmware version, manufacturer, and feature sets to tell the remote what to select.
And because the Amazon remote and the Roku remote are now Bluetooth, all the Roku or Amazon Fire Stick have to do is send that information to the device, to the
and programs
remote,
it automatically.
And it programs it automatically, and then it just sends the information.
So even though we thought it was CEC originally, it is not. It is IR.
Right.
So don't get fooled into believing, hey, CEC works.
Not quite.
No.
So so CEC, and this is
And by the
actually
way, what does
come
CEC stand for?
up, Consumer Electronic Control.
Yes.
Hey, I got it right. All right. Now, we had, and I'm looking for it right now, and I don't have it here, but this is actually something that came a little close to us because of our ABO3. In fact, I think it's right there. See the stack of 3 there? It's the second one, and it's there in the middle. Is that the ABO3?
Yes.
It is. Okay. So we actually had a couple weeks ago an issue come up that the ABO3s were going out into the field, and they were actually shutting down.
Right. We're having a specific problem with them on specific installations.
Correct. So now what was interesting about that issue is that we were not aware of what was going on with it. Turns out that the display is actually sending a CEC command to the ABO3 to turn off. However, when it then turns on after that, it does not send the
A
on
complementary command to turn it on.
Exactly. So that really spawned our first time that we said turn off CEC live on episode. Well, at least live on episode it did. But in the real world, we definitely say all the time turn off CEC.
By the way, that actually was, and we forgot it, our fault because we had that feature enabled for what reason we can no longer remember.
Yeah. Yeah. So it actually turned out to be a little bit of a goof. But with that said, yeah, so for the most part, CEC, again, conceptually was a really great idea.
It just didn't pan out well because of bloatware.
Right. Now, the communication that CEC uses is actually, if I understand correctly, it's very similar to an IP command. Because it's not quite an RS-232 command or anything else.
No,
other
it's
than
not quite high speed.
But it's not high speed, exactly. So it's actually going down the same channel, which is where that Ethernet play comes in. So when you look at an HDMI cable and you deconstruct it, you are actually working with a total of 2 wires on an HDMI cable for the CEC and the Ethernet and the ARC channel. Now, in fact, if I remember correctly,
They're modulated over each other.
Yeah. So with this here, I want to say it's these two here. I'll have to double check that. But when you have these 2 cables here, what you have in an Ethernet world, you actually are working off of, in most cases, a 10100 1000.
10100.
10100. This is actually going to be a 10100 speed.
Yes, it's an old school Ethernet cable.
So technically, you could get Ethernet speeds of or at least fast speed, pardon me. It's not gigabit speeds, but you're getting fast speeds down that channel. Now, in a lot of cases, that's plenty for what you would need for many Ethernet applications. However, that standard of Ethernet really never took off.
No, in fact, you were not here then, but when Ethernet was applied to HDMI cables, which was, I believe, firmware version 1.3.
You are correct. Yep.
Every Ethernet cable before that suddenly became obsolete and could not be sold.
Right.
I mean, literally overnight, suddenly, does it have Ethernet? Well, no, and I don't want it.
Yeah.
Now, to date, do you know how many devices have employed Ethernet over HDMI?
When I did my research on this, and I tried to find, which if you guys...
Find something we don't know.
Hey, Symphony Hi-Fi, good to see you. Or Leo, anyways. Yeah, I tried. I really did try to find an HDMI Ethernet device that would actually utilize that. And outside of, like, development devices that were used during the development process, I couldn't find a single device that used it, which is really kind of unfortunate because as a concept, it would have worked really well. However, as we know today, there's not enough bandwidth down that one cable or that one pair of wires in there
For video
streaming, and that's where, of course, the HDMI world has gone to with Netflix and Hulu and Amazon and everybody else that's using video streaming. All the cable companies now that do it all live that way.
If you have a control system, this is still not the interface because you're going to go direct into the device.
Right. So with that, it's kind of unfortunate because you could have had something set up to where, and conceptually, you would have, again, conceptually, it would have worked great. You would have taken an Ethernet connection to, like, say, a receiver or a surround sound receiver, an AVR of some kind, and let that be like your hub for not only the video and audio, but now also the Ethernet connection, is for the networking connection. And then it would have shared out all the information to the rest of the devices and also controlled them over that same connection. So you would have wound up with a single...
It could have at least been used as a USB interface.
Right. So with that,
However,
unfortunately...
because it doesn't do video, it's not good enough really for even audio.
Yeah, it's pretty slow.
It pretty much came and went before it ever came.
Yeah. Now, luckily,
Worse than 3D even.
yeah, I would say. Yeah, I would say. Now, luckily, they did wind up using that Ethernet channel for something else.
Yes, and a lot of people don't know this, but the original HDMI cables did not even require a physical wire in place. So they took a wire from something else to make Ethernet and added one.
Okay.
Because the original cables did not use all 19 pins.
I did not know that.
They used 18 of the 19.
Interesting. So they actually
They
had an
had
extra.
planned for future growth.
Okay.
Now, down the same feeds are the ARC,
Yes.
which and originally was just SPITF. So we're going to walk into ARC now.
Yeah.
Now, ARC's been around for 10 years, I think.
At least that. Yeah. No, let's find out. You go ahead and keep going.
And ARC, Audio Return Channel, which I believe was part of the 1.4, 1.3 spec? 1.3 spec. The concept is really nice. If you had anything plugged into your TV, because it wasn't apps back then, you had devices plugged into your TV, it would actually send SPITF 5.1 audio back to your AVR. The drawback is in the early days, every time you wanted to enable this, you had to make changes in both the AVR and the television. It wasn't a preset you could just do automatically. So you'd have to stop what you're doing, go into the menu of the TV, work your way down, go to a couple of sub-menus and turn on ARC on the terminal.
Right.
Then you'd have to open up the AVR's menu, go down a couple of sub-menus, find the ARC and turn it on. And then when you wanted to go back to regular,
Yep.
redo that process.
So it turns out ARC was a feature that was introduced in HDMI 1.4.
Okay, 1.4.
So it wasn't 1.3, but that's 1.3 is when the Ethernet standard was
Right.
added to it. And then, of course, they learned that no one's ever going to
Nobody
use
cares.
it. So they went ahead and used it for the audio return. Now, for everyone who was keeping up with us, the ARC channel is actually using pin number 17 for its ground, and it's using DDC, there it is there. Pin 14 for its positive. So pin 17 for its ground and pin 14 for the positive on inside of the cable itself. And of course, when you're
Now,
looking
is-
at it,
Just out of absolute curiosity, is EARC on the same pins?
it is. As far as I understand, and at least looking at this here, it is using the same pins for that. Now, of course, what's really cool about, and we'll need to talk more about EARC in a little bit, but
And we
the
will.
EARC as a standard is actually, it's using more bandwidth because there is more data, but not as much as you would think.
Right, because of the way it's deployed in the compression and the algorithms used.
Right.
Let's stick with EARC a moment,
Yeah.
or ARC a moment.
Okay.
How many jobs have you used ARC on?
Okay, I have tried to use ARC on many jobs because as a concept, it would have worked very well for that job because I had a sound bar or whatever it is hooked up, and it would have been nice to just use it directly that way. Unfortunately, every job that I've tried to use it on has never worked correctly.
Even within same brand.
Even within the same brand, and so I always turn it off. And from this point forward, from that point forward, I always turned it off.
Even I've done a lot of Sony soundbar, Sony TVs, and consistency just is not there, and there's a tremendous latency when you turn a TV on for ARC to lock in when it works.
Right.
So I've just gone to the Toslink connection, and it works.
Right. So, Symphony, you are correct. 2009 is when it was introduced, and again, it is 1.4. And any HDMI device that has HDMI 1.4 as a chipset will have that capability built in, except for the source devices, which of course don't need it.
Here's where it gets interesting.
Okay.
When you look at feature sets, the fact that 1.4 can offer these things, it's kind of like going to a dealership and buying a car.
Okay.
A lot of upgrade features are built into the car.
Right.
They just are not turned on the model till you pay extra money. They then pull the car in the back. They plug it into the computer and they say, oh yeah, you want automatic window up.
Turn that on.
They turn it on. It's already there, it's just not enabled till you pay the money.
Gotcha.
When you look at a lot of feature sets, 1.4, 1.3, 2.0 is a set of feature sets that are available to the manufacturer to turn on or not turn on.
Right.
The fact that the feature set is capable, the chip is capable of it, does not guarantee the feature is enabled.
Gotcha. Gotcha. There you go. Well, yes. So, to your point, the HDMI 1.4 standards should support ARC. As Brent has told us here, of course, it's one of those things where they'll turn it on or turn it off depending on whether or not you actually need that in that device or whether or not they want to pay
Right.
for it, really, is what it comes
Yeah,
down to.
you and I both know there's manufacturers that will sell the exact same thing under two different price points.
Right.
They will just market it differently.
Yeah, take off certain features and whatnot that nobody's really using. So,
There have been projectors with $4,000 price points where the only thing that was different between the less expensive and the more expensive was a couple of presets for $235.
right, yeah. So, with that said, as far as ARC is concerned, don't. It's going to save yourself a lot of headache. It's one of those ideas that in concept it worked really well, but in actual use cases, unfortunately, just didn't work. The amount of work that you or your client would have to go through to make it work for that one occasion that you're using it just didn't make it worth it.
Wasn't worth it.
Now, I can say that compared to eARC, things have really changed.
eARC I would use.
Yeah. In fact, I have used.
And it's got, what are the feature set? I'm not going to take your grandstand here. What is the greatest feature set of eARC?
Well, it's got Atmos in it now.
Yes, it does.
So, which is great because if you guys have ever used Atmos, it's a great setup for it for surround sound. But now your smart TV or the device that has is the sending device of the ARC or the EARC now has the capability.
What does E stand for?
I have no clue.
Enhanced.
Which is funny because it's a little E.
It's a little tiny enhancement.
Yeah, it's a small enhancement.
It's a small enhancement.
It's a small enhancement. There you go. Well, other than the fact that they actually made it work this time around, so
yes, had they given us that reliability at the beginning,
things would have been different.
Things would have been different.
Very different, yeah. When you go out now and you find a TV with eARC built into it, you find an AVR with eARC built into it, it works really, really well. I am honestly surprised at how well it does work.
Now, next question. What version of HDMI is required for eARC to function?
So, it's not 2.1. You don't have to have HDMI 2.1. Technically speaking, HDMI 2.0 works.
It was developed for 2.1.
Correct.
And then they realized that it could be backdoored into 2.0 with a firmware change at the chip level.
Yep.
And they did that, and that was 18 months ago.
Yeah. It actually made a big difference because certain manufacturers will then
24
use
months ago.
the same chipset that they've used before and just update the firmware in it, and now they have eARC capability built into it. Now, I haven't seen a lot of those on like a 4K TV. I've seen a lot on the new 8K TVs or anything with a 2.1 port on it. But the nice thing is, of course, is that if you have a display that offers it and can work with it and you need to use that, use it.
Soundbars are starting to come with it. AVRs are starting to come with it. Even the non-2.1 ones. Marantz and Denon started a while back.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
it's honestly turning out great.
It really it's a great feature set.
Yeah, in fact, we're going to need to upgrade our receiver here for testing. So, but we'll talk about that later.
Manufacturers, please listen.
Yeah, so with that said, really, that kind of covers the majority of CEC, ARC, and eARC.
So, CEC, no.
Yep.
ARC, no.
Yep.
eARC, yes.
Yeah.
I think we covered that.
Yeah, yeah. Ethernet, if you can find... If you can find something with Ethernet,
let us know.
Let us know. I don't know what I'll give you if you find it, but let's just say if you can find a device. In fact,
is this a challenge?
I'm going to set a challenge out. If you all will spread the word, get it out there, share it out to all your friends, all the other reps and distributors and dealers that you deal with, send it out there and put a request out for anybody who has some kind of device that uses Ethernet on the HDMI. I want to find it so that we can do some kind of demo. I think that would be great. Let's set that up.
Whoa! You can't just have one device.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We would need two devices.
It has to go to something.
It has to go to something else, right? So I'm putting a call out. If anybody can find that, let me know, and I'll.
Nothing with Dante.
That's an inside joke if there ever was one. If you could find that device, if anybody has one, let me know. Of course, you can contact me, Adam R. at MetroHomeTheater.com, 386-492-8584. You can contact Brent at BrentM at MetroHomeTheaterGroup.com or 866-839-9187, extension 2203. Brent, what are your hours?
My hours are 0800 to 2200, 8 to 10.
8 to 10.
7 days a week. 365 days a year. If you're working, I'm working.
Yeah, unless you got a date, but
yeah, I'm 60.
That hasn't happened in a while.
Not
so I mean, yeah. Anyways,
And by the way, the Miata does not help that situation at all.
So yes. Anyways, all that to say, everybody, yeah, when it comes to, like you just said, CEC, turn it off. ARC, turn it off. EARC, go ahead and leave it on. It works pretty well, unless you don't need it. I'm still a big proponent of saying that
less is more.
Use a source device, use an AVR, use a display device.
We would much rather see you use Roku, an Amazon, or an Apple TV than any of the smart apps, because from an integrator's point of view,
it's so straightforward.
It just works great.
It's so straightforward.
Since he has indoctrinated me into Control 4, I have really become a Roku fan.
Roku's great with Control 4. Man, that driver with Control 4, if you guys use Control 4 with Rokus, you know, holy crap, it works really well. So, Brent, we had a call.
Yes.
No. Crap, it was the call from yesterday.
Okay.
That you had, where the guy had the AIO. The AIO.
Which one?
The one that you had this morning.
This afternoon?
Or this afternoon, yes. With the power, with
okay,
the,
stop.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So. Okay.
Yeah.
That's my Joe Pesci imitation.
Yeah.
Okay. He had a DirecTV satellite receiver, and going into an AVR, and he was having issues where it would not always restart.
Now, don't call him out.
I'm not.
Just be nice. I'm just saying. Be nice.
We have all made this mistake. We've called other people to the job site to show us our mistakes. So we had a DirecTV satellite receiver going into an AVR, and it was having periodic issues, which DirecTV does. And he called up because he got our AIO to fix it. It's like, thank you, we appreciate your purchase. But he was getting an HDCP error. Now, DirecTV has had a random update that we believe increases the current demand on the HDMI bus. HDMI is a little bit bizarre in that the receive side of the system powers the transmit side of the system by sending voltage and current backwards down the HDMI cable. And we think DirecTV in a random update is now requiring more current than they used to. And when this happens, you get a number of bizarre results. HDCP errors, mode out of range, frequency out of range, color shifts.
Yep.
And it seems to vary depending on the receivers to which one it's affected. So he called up saying, you know, here's what's happening. And I talked to the guy a few minutes, said, okay, you put the AIO in for what reason? And he told me it's because they were not always turning on when the system turned on, it didn't always lock up, and he was doing the hot plug reset. That's great. Now the AIO also supplements voltage and current down the TMDS feeds to make sure that the output of the source is properly powered. So my next question was, can you verify that the power plug is correctly secured into the AIO? Because the AIO specifically fixes this problem. And as what happens frequently in our world, because your hands are rummaging around in the back of the rack, you've got a lot going on.
You got a watch on, and it catches a wire.
The wire had been, and by the way, this is the 4th call in about a month you and I have taken on power cords.
Yes, not necessarily the AIO power cords,
just power cords. So one of the things you always, and we've harped on this before on this particular show, check your power, check your power, check your power, because they look like they're plugged in, and they're not. That's what happened to us on a Lutron's blinds. And we called a guy out to tell us we were stupid.
For 20 miles away, or 20 or 30 miles away, actually. Now, here's the thing. One of the best things that you can do whenever there's a problem with a device is power cycle. There's actually 2 reasons why this is a good thing to do.
And power cycle it at the device, not at the wall.
Correct. Power cycling it at the device, meaning unplug the actual cord that's at the device, or the closest plug that you can unplug to it, because some, of course, have a built-in power cord.
Where you can't get to it.
But the thing is that it does 2 things. One, it does power down the unit, and it's good to give that unit a refresh, but it also ensures that you're plugged in all the way.
And we've seen the same issue on extenders with category cables. Because let's face it, some of our guys will break terminals off and plug them in and hope for the best.
Well, you've been doing this for so long that you've actually worked for Barney Rubble. You worked at his house, so Barney
Rubble was my apprentice.
even for you, you've run into this problem yourself, and this is something.
BNCs.
Yeah, I mean, this has been something that's been going on for generations now.
Yes, it's not a new problem. It's
exactly.
not reliant. It's certainly not an HDMI specific issue.
Yeah.
Although we've actually had that where they didn't have the HDMI fully inserted.
Which we learned on the first episode of this series.
The 5-volt doesn't get properly get set in.
Exactly. So everything else
doesn't
gets
turn
set.
everything else on.
Exactly. Something doesn't get sorted out. So with that, that's kind of our call for the day. And as always, whenever it comes to something like that, it's the little things. Really, just
it is the little things. And
start at the beginning.
Do not be afraid to tell us everything you've done on the job, and do not think you're going to be embarrassed, because believe me, if there's a mistake to be made,
yeah,
I can't speak for Adam, but I can promise you, I've made it more than once.
I'm catching up to you. I promise. I'm catching up pretty dang quick.
You know, you're out there, you're working, your mind's on something else, and it really is the little things. So
I'll put another call out. I want to hear.
What's your faux pas?
What did you do on accident or possibly on purpose, trying to cut a corner here or there, and it bit you in the butt? What did you do? That's a little thing that happened. Put it down in the chat section. Put it down in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you all, and
or you can email us and say, just
together.
put this out anonymously.
There you go. Yeah, maybe do it that way. That way you don't put yourself out there like that. But
you believe me, you cannot be as stupid as I've been, so it's okay.
There's been some good ones. Anyways, so our quick little piece of
this is
news.
The tease.
Well, yeah. It's not that big, but it's still pretty big because of the simple fact that the consumer, this is from CE, our friends over at CE Pro. Of course, check them out. If you aren't signed up for CE Pro, definitely do that, because they're actually they got some really good stuff out there, and they keep you up to date with everything. The consumer electronics market as a whole, not just the custom integrator market, so this is actually going out in the broad market as well, but as of 2019, it was $683 billion in trade value.
That's with a B.
That's with a B, yes. Yeah, so lots of money.
Billions.
Billions. Not millions, billions. Okay? So, but it has increased in a single year $3 billion.
Because of COVID, no doubt. People are home.
Yeah. So things are growing for our industry. You guys are getting out there and really kicking butt with everything and doing installations and whatnot and giving good service to everybody. We are here, of course, to give you good service and ensure that you have products that work great. And if they don't work great, we're a phone call away to help you out with anything and everything you're working on, even if it's not ours.
I have a tidbit that's from one of our competitors.
Oh, I'm glad to hear it.
Well, it's a happy tidbit.
Okay.
For him.
I mean, for them.
I was talking with a dealer over the weekend, called
Right.
and he had an issue, and I said, well, did you call the manufacturer? He said, yes, I called Jerry, my sales guy at AV Pro. And Jerry told me he retired. It's like, really? So I had to call Matt at AV Pro, because known him for a bunch of years. I said, Matt, Jerry's retired. He said, you didn't hear? He hit a $3 million scratch-off lotto ticket.
Well, good for him. Now, we've actually got a pretty good question.
Okay.
Okay. So, the question is, this is from Amos. Hi, Amos. Thanks for checking in with us. Back to last week's webinar.
Yes.
How often is EDID data refreshed, and why is it refreshed after a hot plug? I mean, what would change?
Okay.
This is a really good one.
Well, and here's where it gets interesting. EDID data, and we kind of lump HDCP in with EDID.
Right.
EDID doesn't actually get changed that often. EDID, when a system first turns on and hot plug comes back, that is when all the negotiations happen. Who are you? What are you? Resolution, bit rate, color depth, firmware, HDR, no HDR, audio, no audio, and HDCP.
Right.
Now, HDCP is refreshed every 2 to 3 seconds.
Yes.
Now, it travels down the same roadway, the same cable wires, as EDID. You'll see, and if you've ever used one of our DADs, which has the little LED indicators on it, you will see that the clock and the data one will flash in kind of a blink, 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 because the clock's constantly ticking and the data is HDCP. EDID, depending on the device, can be checked regularly or not. It depends on the source device.
Correct.
For example, DirecTV. DirecTV in the past only did EDID when you first powered it up.
Right.
So if you plugged one of these into a DirecTV satellite receiver and looked at it, you never saw anything on the data because there was no HDCP.
Right.
There was no data except when you first powered it on.
powered it on, not standby power, right?
First powered it on.
So you plugged
it in.
The HDMI, or probably plug in the power cable, and then it syncs.
And then you started seeing HDCP and EDID data on the pay-per-view channels.
Right.
And then ESPN, and it started spreading across the spectrum.
Right.
So now it's used quite a bit. Cable boxes are now starting to use it for the same reason. When in the past, all you saw was the clock. Now, the purpose of the hot plug, particularly as we moved further up in bandwidth and in feature sets and in chipsets, because a lot of devices that are 4K also have a 1.4 and a 2.0 chipset.
Right.
And something has to be the traffic cop between the two chipsets. Which chip is the data going to use, and which one do we use to communicate? Because if you've got a TV with 2 chips and a source with 2 chips, they both got to use the same chip.
Just to communicate, not even for the video part of it. Yeah.
So they have to be on the same rail. And that's what hot plug does.
Right.
When hot plug is turned off and returned back on, it sets that negotiation. Okay, I'm going to do this, so I need to be in this chipset.
Right.
That is the purpose of the hot plug, and that's really the purpose of the AIO.
I need to just put one back here and leave it back here.
Yeah, thank you.
It just needs to live there because we use it almost. We reach for it almost every episode.
The hot plug reset is a tremendous lifesaver.
Yes.
We encourage, because along with the hot plug reset on the AIO, you also get the voltage and current supplementation, which we talked about for the DirecTV issue.
Right.
The capacitive stripping, which the Junior 3 does, which takes the chokehold off the data so it works correctly.
Yep.
Fixes rise time issues.
Yep.
Fixes issues with a certain chipset that's used in the Kaleidoscape and another number of other high-end products. It's nothing wrong with those products.
Nope. Great products.
Nothing wrong with the chipset.
Nope.
It actually is
Great
a
chipset.
better chipset.
Yeah.
It's just is a little pickier.
In fact, it would be great if they use that chipset in everything, because it actually has a standard of some.
Yes.
I'm reaching too far into a
Wait a minute. So wait a minute. Are we going to do Dante?
Yeah. Anyways, so yes, and with that being said, that's what hot plug does as far as the resyncing of it. And like you said, it's the HDCP. Now, in a lot of cases, what's going to happen is that in a standard setup, in what most TV manufacturers and most source manufacturers are looking at, is the standard setup, which is going to be a TV 3 feet away, the sources, and you're going to have everything plugged into the TV. You're going to have the 4 inputs on the TV. You're going to have your cable box, your Xbox, and your Roku. You know, and then you maybe one extra, maybe a DVR of some kind for surveillance. Now, the thing is that all 4 of those sources are plugged into the TV, and it never changes. And so the nice thing is that the TV can say, okay, source 1 is a 1080p display or 1080i. Source 2 is a 4K source. Source 3 is 4K. And that one's a DVR, so I'm just going to take whatever it gives me, 1080p. So then at that point, it locks it in, and it doesn't have to think about anything else.
Well, it didn't used to.
Didn't used to. Now, of course, the Roku or something in there, when it's switching back and forth between a 4K source or 4K media
HDR.
HDR
and
or something else,
that's the big
you're
issue.
going to run into troubles. Now, because it used to just lock it in, it didn't have to think about asking again for everything else. So what you have now, of course, is you may have an AVR put into place, and the AVR is switching because you have the AVR going to one input on the TV, but you have everything else behind the AVR. So you got your cable box, you have your Roku, you got your Xbox, and you got your DVR going to the receiver. So the problem that you run into is that the receiver keeps switching between everything, and TV says, well, it's just the one input, so I'm not going to change anything. I'm not going to look for anything else. That's where you run into problems because the TV isn't asking for new information.
Well, now it gets even more complex.
Right.
Particularly in the Northeast and in Texas. We're seeing issues with cable boxes and TVs, where cable box works great. You turn the TV off at night.
Yep.
You come back the next morning, you turn the TV on, you pop on button, TV comes on, source not detected, HDMI not detected, nothing found.
And this is just cable box TV,
right,
nothing
just
special.
Short cable.
Yep.
Not long, nothing extreme.
Yep.
And what is happening is when the TV goes off, it's not shutting off hot plug, but it's no longer negotiating EDID.
Mm-hmm.
So when the system comes back on, the cable box does not have any correct information to know what to do.
Right.
So it's not the TV that we're forcing the reset on. It's the source that's being reset by the TV telling it I'm no longer here.
Right.
And without that hot plug reset, the box no longer knows that the TV doesn't know.
Right. So, to your point, yes, you are correct. In most cases, nothing changes. Now that we're getting into or sorry, we've been in the HDMI 2.0 world where we have a 1.4 chip and a 2.0 chip, so 1080p and 4K, for instance. In that world, that's where the problem comes in, because it doesn't know, especially with, say, a Roku or another device that's always switching back and forth between the different resolutions.
Just the menu's not going to be 4K HDR.
Right, exactly. So as you're switching between that, the TV just says, I'm locking into this, and then it doesn't show anything else. And so that's where a lot of times where you run into troubles with it, is it just doesn't have the correct chipset, or pardon me, it doesn't use the correct chipset to communicate because it's still locked into the other one. So the hot plug interrupt will fix that, because then it says, okay, new interaction, who are you, what can you do, what can I give you, what do you want, what yada yada yada.
Based on where we are now.
Right, exactly. So it starts fresh with it. It's essentially unplugging power and plugging power back in.
It's just resetting your computer, restarting it.
Exactly.
And you're not clearing anything. It's not like you're deleting data.
Nope.
It's just a restart.
Yep. So great question, Amos. Thank you very much for that question. If you have any other questions or any other comments and whatnot,
keep an AIO2 in your truck.
Yeah, throw an AIO2 in there with you. Throw a Junior in there with you. I mean, honestly, the AIO2 is really the thing you want to have in the truck with you. Have like 2 with you, maybe 1 at the office and 1 in the truck. That way you always have 1 in the truck afterwards, because it really is one of those devices that has, as much as we can cram into it, it is our all-in-one. The only thing it doesn't have is the gigabit accelerator, which we have those available as well. But
which is at the other end of the cable.
It's the other end of the cable, but it's also one of those devices that we didn't want to put in there because that would just throw the price way out of there. So we wanted to keep it 2 separate items with that.
And
so all of our
of
fix-it stuff is in the AIO2.
Voltage, current, time,
Yep.
capacitive loading, resets, it's all there.
Yep. Definitely check that out. So contact your rep, contact your distributor, find out pricing and availability for that as well. So,
remember, turn off your CEC, turn off your ARC, and eARC's cool.
eARC's cool. So everybody, thank you again for checking in with us today. A like and a subscribe would be we would be very thankful for it. Hit that bell notification to let you know when we do go live, which every week on Wednesday at 3 p.m. is when we do go live. So definitely check in with us on that. If you guys have any topics that you think that we should be talking about, let us know in the chat or in the comment section below, or you can contact us here, of course. Like I said before, phone number is 386-492-8584. My email address is adamr@metrohometheatergroup.com. Oh, sorry, metrohometheater.com. And Brent, of course, is brentm@metrohometheater.com. And you can call him at 866-839-9187, extension 2203.
It's because I have the old phone system. I'm not as cool as Adam.
Right, yeah. So with that said, everybody, thank you for checking in with us today. It was a great episode. A lot of information and stuff that, honestly, could be used really well. You didn't get to draw. There was no art for today. Yeah, maybe tomorrow, or not tomorrow. Pardon me, next week. Next Wednesday, because I think next Wednesday we're talking about DDC. No, we're not. Pardon me. We're talking about TMDS. That's what we're talking about.
Part
DDC.
1 of TMDS.
Technically, DDC was today.
Last week.
Well,
no, last week.
That's right. Pardon me. You're correct. That is part of the EDID. So
it is EDID.
It is EDID. Yeah. I mean, it's the date. What does DDC stand for?
Digital Data Channel.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll buy into that.
Everybody, thank you for checking in with us today. If you have any questions or comments or concerns after the fact and you want to let us know, put them down in the comment section below.
Leo, call us.
Yep. Leo, give us a call after the episode. We'd like to talk to you about what you were talking with Brent about before. Anyways, all that to say, we'll see y'all next time. As always.
Don't cut your wires too short.
Yep.
Turn off CEC.
Yep. Reboot early.
Reboot often.
Turn off CEC.
Don't cut your wires too short.
Don't cut your wires too short. And call tech support.
Yep.
There you go.
Wow. I'm Brent.
I'm Adam.
Have a great day.
We'll see y'all next time.